Hello, this is Don Newmer again. I'm the Assistant Council Commissioner for Training for the Pennsylvania Dutch Council. Today we're going to talk about friendstorming. And I want to give you a little background so you understand what this is. Uh, First of all, I think we all recognize that it's never been easy to recruit volunteers, and it's getting tougher all the time. And there can be different reasons for that. We've just gone through COVID. We haven't always had the most flattering things going on with Boy Scouts in recent history, to no fault of Scouts. Um, and it's just maybe it's the personality or the generational differences that we're seeing now with people not being quite so willing to volunteer. So this is actually a technique that was developed to recruit volunteers. It's really intended for the council and the district level, but I'm going to point out as we get into this that I think this could apply even down to the unit level. I mean, put yourself in position, you're a unit commissioner, your unit that you're dealing with is having trouble recruiting a committee chair or a treasurer or a scoutmaster or den leader. I think you could literally take this friendstorming down to a unit level, modify it, and use this to come up with or help the units come up with possible volunteers that they can reach out to. So what we're going to do today, it's designed to help facilitate a volunteer prospecting best methods. In other words, called friendstorming, for identifying large numbers of potential candidates for various levels of service. It can be presented at a council level meeting, at a district level meeting. As I said, it can be taken right down to a unit level, I think. And the ultimate goal of this is names of prospective volunteers are offered through discussion-generated conversation. Now, I want to point out if at the council or district level, if you have a nominating committee, this isn't intended to supplant the nominating committee. It's to help strengthen district volunteerism and to really assist that nominating committee. That nominating committee is an invaluable resource and a critical component to realizing successful results. They should be involved at whatever level throughout these friendstorming sessions. And if you don't have a nominating committee, that's probably something you really want to try to look at. But again, we're talking about coming up with volunteers. Maybe you need to do a friendstorming to come up with a volunteer committee. Okay, so at the end of this training, what are we going to do? Understand what makes a likely candidate to serve as a district or council volunteer. But remember what I said, think outside the box here. We're going to talk about this at district or council level. But this, again, I truly believe this friendstorming could be taken down to a unit level where units having trouble finding volunteers to fill their leadership roles. We're going to talk about the steps of a friendstorming session. We're going to demonstrate how to conduct and participate in a friendstorming session. We're not actually obviously going to do one. This is online training, but we're going to talk through some of the things. So we're going to explain how to follow up on a prospect list to recruit and retain volunteers. Because that's one of the things, and I'll emphasize this towards the end. It's not just coming up with a list, but then how do you go out and reach out to those prospects, and then how do you retain them? So friendstorming. When you serve as a district or council volunteer, you're part of a worldwide movement composed of people who are dedicated to a common goal, who use organization as a means, not an end. So the whole hope of this movement rests on a couple assumptions. First of all, that unit leaders can use the movement's programs in a manner to make a difference in the lives of young people. And that district and council volunteers will do whatever is necessary to ensure every unit leader's success. And hopefully we all agree on that. We wouldn't be in this if we don't believe this is a good program. We need to figure out how we can move forward in these trying times. So the specific purpose of what we're going to do here is to understand the value of friendstorming as a best method for recruiting volunteers, not just district. Learn how to conduct a successful recruiting program with emphasis on strengthening your local districts, and be able to lead or assist in the delivery of a friendstorming session at your local council, district, or even at a unit. Again, I said, I want you to always keep in the back of your mind as a unit commissioner, this is something I think could assist down at the unit level too. Okay, Friendstorming on tour. So what this really is when you take it on the road. This isn't a matter of just sitting in somebody's dining room and throwing ideas around. The idea of a Friendstorming on tour is you actually go out to meetings. It may be something you set up out as part of a district roundtable. May set up with the district key three. This could be at a council level. It could be with your council board. Again, this could be sitting down with a unit committee and saying, okay, let's come up with some ideas on who can fill certain positions at the unit. And I'm also going to put out there one of our biggest problems as commissioners, and particularly at the district and council level, is finding those unit commissioners. This could very well be where the district commissioner goes down to certain units and says, okay, we want to assign a unit commissioner to you. Please help us come up with ideas of names of people who you think would be a good unit commissioner for you. It may be past Eagle Scouts or people that used to be the Scoutmaster and their child, aged out, but they're still kind of hanging around the fringes. Maybe they show up for fundraisers or they like the camping trips or something. So there's a potential here for the district commissioner to go out to units that aren't supported by unit commissioners and use this idea to come up with names. So the other thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is sometimes it's helpful to have rosters. When I say rosters, it could be unit rosters, past unit rosters. It could be at the district level having a roster of current district volunteers, National Eagle Scout Society, list of those people who strongly give to Friends of Scouting. We're going to talk about more ideas later coming up on this. Our purpose is to help generate a list of prospects who may serve district or council level. Again, keep in mind, I think this could be used even at the unit level. Thus the name Friendstorming on Tour. This is an important step in volunteer recruiting. You can imagine when the time comes to recruit someone, if there's a long list of people who could be considered, isn't that incredible to actually have something like that? In an actual Friendstorming session, make sure you involve the leadership that you're targeting, whether that's district level, the key three, council, again, whether it's at a unit and you want the unit committee to be involved, maybe the charter organization, get them involved. And make sure at the end of it that you thank them for participating and being a role in it. So let's talk about why somebody volunteers. I want you to think back why you volunteered. The interesting thing is I found most people don't volunteer for things that are distasteful, that they don't want to do. You're offering your own time. Most people aren't doing something that they absolutely hated at the end. But it's an internal decision. Volunteering might meet their needs or needs of their children. It may be beyond any self-serving motivation. People volunteer sometimes for friendship. That can be a very, very powerful motivator. I had a committee chair who told me even though his son had long since aged out, he was going to remain my committee chair as long as I was Scoutmaster. That's a friend's connection. You believe strongly in scouting and what scouting does. You have a passion for it. We're going to talk later about the idea of giving your story, but this is something to think about on why you volunteer, and it may resonate with other people. When people are motivated to volunteer because of their passion for a cause, the Boy Scouts of America, people will give more of their time, talent, and treasure. This is the highest level of motivation, having a passion for it. And maybe in some cases, we need to reinstill that passion. So, let me ask you a couple things. Obviously we can't interact here, it's online, but think about who recruited you. Think about why you're still in scouting, why you're still volunteering. Is there a common thread here? And then be prepared if you're participating in one of these Friendstormings to tell your story. People appreciate more whenever they hear how it's impacted on somebody and why it's working for them. So be prepared to put that together. You'll hear things like elevator speeches. An elevator speech is, if you had just the time of an elevator trip, to convince somebody that they should, for instance, hire you. You need to condense everything down to that period that you might be riding in an elevator to hire you, to sell them on something. Kind of the same idea with your story. Come up with something, be sincere, but why you do what you do. Okay, so what are the components of a successful recruiting program? We're not actually going to role play here. We're just going to talk through it, obviously. So one of the things that we do is when we do a Friendstorming tour, you need a couple things. You need a tour guide. That can be one or two people. Often it's the leadership at that level. So at the district level, it might be the district executive and the district commissioner or the district chair. You also want to have somebody who's a scribe. This is somebody who's going to keep track of the names that you come up with. So, having a big flip chart, would be very helpful. And what you want to do is try to fill that up. People feel motivated if they start to see, hey, look, we're coming up with some ideas here. So once participants are gathered, this is a time to tell a story about a unit volunteer who is enticed to join the district or at whatever level you're recruiting for. The point of the story is to show how people will surprise you. Sometimes we like to say no for prospects, and sometimes it costs us good volunteers. We may also be tempted to point to unit leaders and indicate we should not recruit them away from the unit. Sometimes, of course, we should leave them where they are. I mean, they're doing good there. But let's also be aware that they know others who could replace them, and sometimes it's good for a unit to be in a position where it's refreshing its leadership. So don't necessarily shy away from it. Yeah, we don't want to poach good leaders, to pull them up to the district level. But at the same time, have an honest and candid discussion. Maybe they're ready to move on, and we want to grab them before they just sort of fade away. The story also improves group dynamics, allowing Friendstorming participants to think about who they will mention and to muster courage to put forth. Without a story, the results are not going to be good. Okay, next we want to explain our purpose. It's to help generate a list of prospects who might serve at their particular level. People who might be our friends, or better yet, friends to our units. Thus, of course, we get the name Friendstorming on tour. State how everyone's going to be involved. If you have a district nominating committee, how they're going to be involved, the key three, make sure everybody understands everybody's role here. Just because somebody comes up and says, well, I think this person would be a great chairman for the, camping committee, doesn't necessarily mean that person is going to become the chairman of the camping committee. And you need to lay the ground rules so nobody's disappointed. And then you want to establish some rules. Okay, we only want names. We talked about lists. It's good if people have them, but don't get focused if they don't. I mean, the idea here is just to come up with names of people out here that might be good at the level you're recruiting. Please avoid saying no for a prospect. We don't want to get into well, I don't think this person would be good for this position, and I think this person's going to say no anyways. Don't even go there. You want to come up with a list of people that you think might be possibilities at the level you're trying to recruit. Of course, there are exceptions. If someone is mentioned is already active in the district or council, you should bring that up. So, maybe a decision among the group could be, yeah, they're too involved in other stuff. We don't want to pull them away. And of course, people should speak up if they know the person's moved away or had a change in status, or for some reason the prospect is unsuitable to serve as a scouting volunteer. I mean, we got to be honest to those. Maybe they just got a new job and that they're overwhelmed, and this might not be a good time to reach out. But in general, don't remove or delete or not put people on a list. Please don't be concerned about what position might be filled. You should be going out for just prospects. This is a list of people that you think might be good at a particular level, not specifically for a particular job. Don't focus on a single position. That's not really what friendstorming's about. And then you start building that list of names. So then if you're facilitating this or you're involved in this at a leader level, talk about the power of networking. Point out, let's say you got 10 people in that room. And let's say each one of those people has 15 names they can come up with. That's 150 names you might end up on your list. And there are a lot of different places that you can look at. Don't just think, yeah, these are people in scouting. There are a lot of people in the community that are willing to be involved, especially when you're talking things like finance, fundraising, programs that have a lot of expertise that don't necessarily have to be currently or past involved in scouting. A lot of people in our charter organizations, they have a service nature, and they may be more than willing to step up and be involved more in scouting. Okay, so let's talk about actually friendstorming now. So you may want to start with, does anyone know anyone out there who ought to be in here joining our circle of friends and enjoying the rewards of district council service? Did anyone bring a list of prospects? If you did, please look over your list and give us names of people you think would be good volunteers. As the names are mentioned, the scribe writes them on a flip chart with a small note, and possibly put the initials of the person who mentioned the name, a unit or other reference that might help later. And as it slows down, here are some things that the tour guide, the facilitator, can talk about. So who do you know in your home unit? How about unit leaders, current or former? Other volunteers? Who were the best den leaders out there? Who made good committee chairs? Unit volunteers you haven't seen around for a while. Who's helped at camp? Who has assisted at district events, camporees, Klondikes, breakfast hikes? How about people who volunteered in the district in the past? For those of you who have assisted in training, what participants stood out? And here's another list, and we kind of laugh about this, but it's very effective. We all know, or most of us know, that wood badgers have to do a ticket. Becoming a district or council volunteer, unit commissioner, whatever, is an excellent source for a wood badge ticket, where they need to come up with how they're going to volunteer and help their council or district or council out. So establishing a relationship with a wood badge course and actually going out and talking to them about, here's some potentials, is a great great place to, in essence, kind of do your own little friendstorming at a wood badge course. But I want to be clear, talk to the wood badge leader and see if you would be welcomed, to come out and, speak for a few minutes. How about PTA volunteers, teachers, principals who make good additions to your committees? Are there friends or leaders in your church who might help? People who've been recognized in the past? Other volunteers in the community that might also have a good fit into scouting? People in the community that might help us raise money, like service club members? Members of foundation or nonprofit boards or committees who may serve an interest in scouting? People you do business with? And how about unit people who've complimented you or come to you about an event or district service? It's a good time to say, here's where you can help out and give back. Who's always at roundtable? Do you know the grown sons and daughters are current and past volunteers? Who's at your fundraising breakfasts or similar events who might be of value to district operations? Sometimes it's also good to digress. If things seem to be slowing down, you want to give participants time to think of more names. You can do things like go back to the chart, count the names recorded so far. Another technique is to talk about various districts, offer factoids. You remember that one time at Camp Reed, we're the #1 district in Friends of Scouting. Our journey to excellence, was this year. Any of those things might trigger another name. The next thing, and we're getting towards the end here, but the next thing is stick to a schedule. Everybody's time's valuable. So set a very specific time, usually not more than an hour, to come up with as many names as you can. You don't want to drag it on. You don't want it to digress for people to go wandering off in other directions. This is solely about coming up with a list of possible volunteers. And one thing they suggest is whenever it's all done, ask people to commit to continuing with this program. They actually talk about creating a certificate, but basically ask people to go, I, Don Newmer, promise to do my best to systematically see to the follow-up on these names for the good of scouting in our district, our council, in our unit. So what's next? We got this nice list. That's great, but if we don't do something with it, so certainly the list can go to your district commissioner, your council commissioner. It can go to nominating committees. It should go to key threes. Again, if you're at the unit level, this is something that you discuss with the committee, with the charter organization. And then the key threes and the nominating committees should put the list to work, reaching out to people. So recognize it's an ongoing process. It's great if we can come up with a list of 80 or 100 names, but that doesn't mean it ends there. It also doesn't end just because we have the list. We have to follow up and recruit effectively. We got to understand, if somebody agrees to do something, they'll usually start off, they're going to be very enthusiastic when they agree to take the position. It's our responsibility to then to guide them to be successful early so that they know their efforts are worthwhile and appreciated. That means mentoring. That means training. That means helping them and assisting them and making sure they're involved and they're part of the new family, if you will. It's about relationships, managed with respect. When they say yes, find the right fit for the job. Just having a seat filled is not always the best, and it's not always the right fit. And I mean, this is a little further than that, but when I was district commissioner, I took over and I had a very extensive list of unit commissioners, and I was really impressed until I found out there was such pressure put on the district commissioners to come up with unit commissioners that my predecessor had literally just put people's names down, had never even asked them if they wanted to be a unit commissioner. At the end of the day, I think my very extensive list ended up, I had like 2 people. That's not what we're trying to do here. This isn't about just putting a name somewhere. This is finding the right fit, making sure that they're mentored, making sure that they have the necessary training and support to do the best job they can. Because again, remember back to why people volunteer. Often they volunteer because they get something out of it. The something might be a feel good. The something might be that they're happy that they did a good job or they helped somebody. If they fail at that, you're not going to keep them as a volunteer. So it's important for us to make sure they don't fail. So, we talked about training. They really need onboarding. It's a good idea to have an onboarding plan. A volunteer says yes, so what do we do now? Training, coaching, and mentoring. And we should do this should be incorporated in regular business meetings. We kind of talk about recruiting, but it never really goes anywhere. We sit there and we lament on how we can't find anyone to volunteer. I really believe that we need to be active in this, and it's something I'm going to push among commissioners, is we need to fill those commissioner roles, because if not, we're not supporting the units, which is what our primary duty is. So at least at the commissioner level, that's going to be one of my big pushes. So there's really no way you can ask questions, comments, or concerns. If you wish, you could email me at dnewmer, so that's DNUMER @gmail.com, and I would do my best to answer you as best I can. So hopefully what we did is we understand what makes a likely candidate to serve as a district or council volunteer. We know the steps of friendstorming session. We got an idea of how to conduct and participate in a friendstorming session, and we can explain how to follow up on the prospect list and to recruit and retain volunteers. So with that, I hope you had a beneficial training here, and stay tuned. We'll have more of these in the future. Thanks.